I would say I'm sure there's people that don't use me because of it, but I've also attracted a lot of clientele that specifically saw that I was a Christian, and that was one of the bigger reasons they booked me, because they shared the same faith. Or I ended up hiding in that bush for 40 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Before I was able to pop out, and I was just covered in fire ants. It was pretty miserable, but it was worth it for the photos and for the surprise and everything like that.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Beyond the Cut. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for today's episode. Today, I'm going to have my friend Alissa. Alissa, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Right. Hi, I'm Alissa. Again, I am behind the scenes of Alissa C Photography. I've been doing it full time for 2 years now, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So, how long have you been in photography?
So actually, been in it. I started actually pursuing it when I was 14. So it's been 5 years now. I'd always had the interest in it since I was like 10, 11, but I didn't really get into it until I was a teenager. And I don't know, I kind of just started off, with one of those like $50 kid cameras and then went from there.
Okay. Well, at what point did you want to start your own business?
I would say probably around 16, 17 is when I decided to do it, because I enjoyed it enough to where I was like, you know what, I could turn this into a job. Mm. And I really liked doing people, like portrait photography and everything, but I was like, it's easier if I can turn it into a business. That way I'm actually able to use that money to continue my hobby and, make some profit off of it as well.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely nice to be able to pursue your passions like that, because, and then also it's also a plus to get paid for it as well. You're just like, yeah, I'm actually getting paid to do something I like,
Yeah.
Okay, so portraits is primarily what you do. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of busy season for you, right? Because graduation's just coming up.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of like senior photos, prom photos, things like that. I try to keep up with my social media on it, but there's a lot I still don't post because I'm just busy all the time working on them, sending them out to everyone. I try to keep at my turnaround time 2 weeks, so I'm trying to go fast with everything, but
yeah. Okay. So roughly, I guess on average, how many clients would you say you have per year?
Oh, per year, I feel like that's, I'm not sure how much I would say per year, because I can do anywhere from where I'm doing maybe a wedding a month, and then I'm doing senior photos throughout the year and family photos, to, it being pretty dead during like winter season and stuff like that, where I don't really have many. Probably, I don't know how much a year, but I would say I could do up to 10 people a month, at least 10 groups, 10 actual sessions.
Okay. Is there a specific type of event you really enjoy doing, like either weddings or family portraits or anything like that?
I would say I love doing weddings, because a lot of people they're very stressful. They don't want to do them. They don't want to mess them up. But I'm like, I enjoy stressful environments. I like the go factor where you're just rushing around and trying to, do as much as possible. And there's a lot of creativity in it, because you're not just doing one thing, you're doing every form of photography in one day. Yeah. And it's a lot of fun, especially just, you're doing someone's wedding. Like, that's a big day for them. Being able to be the one to capture the emotions and be the one behind the scenes is really fun.
Yeah, no, I agree. I worked my first wedding. Let's see, I think it's been 2 weeks ago, and it was really stressful. Um, but I really enjoyed it. I think I don't really know if I'd ever pivot my business to go in the wedding space because I think, like you said, that there's a lot going on. There are a lot of different moving parts. The guy that I was working with, um, basically, he needed a bunch of he has a bunch of different contractors who help with both photo and video, um, and he was pretty much, now that it's pretty much wedding season, like that weekend that I was working with him, he was already doing 3 different weddings. From the wedding that I was working at, he was going to shoot a wedding reception that started at 8 o'clock, and he'd probably be there till midnight.
Yeah.
So just like that's just crazy. I don't know how you would do that. For me, I'm just like, sorry.
Yeah, I'll just say I don't normally do weddings full time just because they do take up your weekends. And then if you're doing like 3-4 weddings a month, sometimes you're doing them back to back. So I've done it where I have a Friday through Sunday I'm doing weddings, and it's like on top of that I still work another job. So having to do that edit in the evenings, you don't have much time for life, but it's still enjoyable. I think I keep it to 1 a month now, just because I like to keep it more where I have more flexibility and I can focus on that one family or group.
Right. Would you, or have you ever outsourced your editing so that can kind of, you can take that off your plate?
Oh, could you repeat that one?
Have you ever outsourced your editing of your pictures so that you can take it off your plate for yourself?
I have not. I almost did at one point during the fall, I would say. So spring is a busy season for me, but fall is where I'll disappear for the next 3 months because I'm working on photography the whole time. And I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I might outsource it to someone, but the part of me that just doesn't want to spend the money and do that, I've kind of learned how to like bulk edit. I'll create a preset for that specific gallery that I'm working on, paste edit, do it all at once, and then kind of tweak it for each photo a little bit, which I think saves me a lot of time. But I have not yet outsourced it.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like, at least for me, I'm very not nitpicky, but like I do have definitely my own style of video editing, but I don't have the patience to just sit on editing software for hours and for it to look okay. I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna pay somebody else to do it. So I'm like, because I'd be at one point I definitely had clients where I'd be working like an Instagram reel for them, and I went back and forth with them for probably about a month and a half or 2 months for one video. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, guys, we have to move past this. Like, this is not how social media works. Like, you're not going to get one really good reel. Yeah. Your social media is going to explode. Like, that's not how it works. So I'm like, okay, can I get past this? Can we move on? Can we move on? No, they just wanted more revisions. I'm just like, okay, you know what? I'm kind of done. So what is your take on like, I guess the idea of revisions? Like, are you willing to continue to go back and forth with the client until they're happy with their final product, even though it's different from what you would want, or are you just stop?
So I have it in my contract that they have to accept what I deliver them as my creativity and like what they hired me for, because I had a situation where I did a wedding and these clients, they knew how I shot my weddings. They knew how my photos would look, but they just wanted me to tweak every little thing. And it was like, I delivered their gallery and they were like, can you fix this? Can you fix this? So at the time I was like, sure, I'll fix that. Okay. But it was like, the more I fixed, the more things they found. And they just wanted me to keep changing everything to where it was not only really stressful, but I'm like, this is taking up all my time. You're not going to be happy. You're I don't think you're ever going to be content. So I eventually was just like, I'm done. I cannot do this anymore. And I put it in my contract after that, where I was like, I will not tweak it. I will not change it. If you want something, you can do it yourself, but I will not do that.
Yeah. I don't have the patience for stuff like that, which is primarily why I'd rather outsource it to somebody else. But I can't stand stuff like that, because from there, they're at the end of the day, like, realistically, they're never going to be satisfied. And I'm just like, you're going to take it or leave it. And that may or may not be the right mindset to it, but I had to figure out that at some point I had to cap it for myself. And even if I'm working with outsourcing my work, like, it's their time as well. Time is money. So I'm just like, okay, I'm going to put it in my contract as well of, capping it and whatever. So within the DFW space, I'm sure that there are plenty of other photographers within this area. What do you think separates yourself from other photographers within the DFW area?
So I follow a lot of the photographers in this area, and I'm actually friends with a couple of them as well. I would say what separates me is definitely, like, I feel like I have a very different style, because there's a lot, I'm not sure the exact style of it, but there's like this dreamy kind of like aesthetic style going on right now. And I've noticed a lot of them do that same style. So it's pretty easy to just find a photographer, and you can find one that's cheaper, find one that's closer to you, versus finding someone with a very distinct style that you can't find anywhere else. And that's kind of where I'm at, where I can do that dreamy aesthetic style that people are looking for. So if they ask for it, I'm like, I can do it. But I do more of like I would say it's more of a vibrant, bolder style, and I have like a warm touch to it. But I can do relatively what you ask of me. If you have a certain style and I'm like, I can do that, I will. But I would say that. And then also, I'm pretty quick I'm very flexible with, like, if they want how much time they want, I'll do payment plans for people if, they can't afford to do everything all at once. And I do relatively cheap travel charges, and, like, you know what, you can just pay for my gas tank and you're good. Like, I'll travel for you. So I'd say in that way, I'm stand out a little more.
Have you traveled outside of Texas for a specific client?
Yeah. No, I have. So I haven't specifically gone out of state for someone yet. I almost went to Kentucky, but they didn't want to pay the hotel and travel fees for that. So I ended up not going, but I have gone out of state for my own personal stuff, and then advertised that I'm out of state, and I've done photo shoots that way, but not specifically for someone.
Yeah, I've been seeing how there are specific, like, videographers where clients are specifically looking for that specific style that creative has to offer, and they are willing to pay all those travel fees, which hopefully both of us will get to that point where we could do that. But I'm just like, in the concept of traveling, even across the states, nonetheless, across the world, for a specific, client shoot, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I've seen people do it, and I'm like, I would love to do that. And they're not going to be a pain about travel or anything like that. Yeah,
I think it would be really cool. I would love to become a travel photographer, but currently with the other jobs I work, I would have to take off so much time in those jobs that I'm not really advertising myself much for travel right now. If it's like a couple hours away, something like that, I can do it over the weekend. But anything where I would have to stay for a couple nights, I'm just like, currently I can't really do that. But hopefully in the future I might.
So in your Instagram bio, you say Christian photographer. I was actually curious about that. Obviously, that's very important to preface. But why do you think that is important to preface, especially for people who have never seen your work? Do you think in some ways you've ever experienced people as like that's a turnoff for people, or do you think that actually do people are they attracted to you because it's clearly stated right from the get go?
I would say I'm sure there's people that don't use me because of it, but I've also attracted a lot of clientele that specifically saw that I was a Christian, and that was one of the bigger reasons they booked me, because they shared the same faith. Or, I had a wedding where it was a very like faith-based wedding. They did vows from the Bible, they did a lot of prayer, and they were like, we want someone who's going to take that seriously and capture that for us. So that's why they picked me. And I thought that was really cool because I don't really hear much. Like, most people don't mention anything about it, but the few that do, I know they appreciate it. And I think it's a really cool way of like, I'm, honoring God in that way, to where I'm using the gift he gave me and the talent he gave me to reach the right people.
Yeah.
And then I'm also able to share with people that don't know him as well, which I think is cool.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, have you ever had to say no to specific clients that they were, how do I say this? They were outside your ethical boundaries.
I've had to do that once. And again, it was for another wedding. They really wanted to use me. And once I realized where they were with everything, I was like, look, I can't, with my own self, I can't do this. Like, I'm sorry. I did still send them other photographers with a similar kind of style, that like ones I liked. And I was like, you might be able to try them, but I won't do this for you. And, they didn't really say anything about it. They were just like, thank you for your time. But that was about it. I'm not sure really where they went off with that afterwards. But so far, I haven't received too much negativity.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. Because I guess I'm at a place right now where I haven't experienced that level of that much of an influx of clientele pick and choose. But definitely, my dad has definitely told me that I need to set that clear boundary and guideline for myself. So if in the event that something like that does happen, that I will have like clear moral guideline as to what I'm going to do, what I'm not going to do, because it's definitely hard, especially like within the wedding space. Like, I would, even if I were to dive into the wedding space, like the concept of doing a same-sex marriage, like I would not do that.
And I know a lot of Christian photographers who they'll still do it because to them they're just like, it's going to happen anyways. Might as well get the money for it. And if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. I was just like, I wouldn't be able to that's such an intimate day. And if you really like want someone to capture that, someone who's not really like going to be for it, I don't think I would even be able to capture it properly and do my job properly.
Yeah.
And then it wouldn't be something I'd advertise anyway. So I wouldn't post it. I would ask that you wouldn't tag me. So with a lot of that, I'm like, I'd rather you just find someone else that might be a little easier for you.
Right. Yeah, no, because with something like that, I mean, that kind of speaks against everything that's in the Bible. And so you going there, even just attending, even if you weren't a part of the creative team, even just attending, you are kind of supporting it. And so, and then if you were to get paid for it, personally, I don't know how I would not necessarily deal with the guilt, but I wouldn't want to have to live with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's only, to me, I think that's only specific to the wedding space. And I think the thing is with weddings, I just feel like you said, because it's an intimate moment, and because it really is the union between two people becoming one. I mean, that's probably the most intimate thing that the Bible says. When it comes to stuff like that. I mean, for me personally, I feel like the Lord put it on my heart to learn a lot more about the sanctity of marriage and like why it's such a big deal to God. And just like, I don't be doing something like that is kind of compromising the values that I've had my entire life. And so I wouldn't want to do that, Yeah. Because I don't really know what other situations you would be put in outside of the wedding space that you would need to decide.
Mostly, I mean, I do just like, couple shoots. Sometimes people just want some new photos with their partner. And it's kind of relatively the same thing. I'm like, you're going to have to find someone else because I wouldn't be able to do my best job working with this as it's not something I believe in. And I do feel bad. I feel like, because I'm a people pleaser. And so, I don't want to like hurt people's feelings or, make them upset. But at the same time, I'm just like, oh gosh, I can't. I'm very strong in my like convictions, and if my convictions are saying no, then I'm like, I'm sorry, I just can't do it.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's the plus side of the Holy Spirit. It's just, it's very clear. Most of the time, it's fairly clear as to when you're getting convicted or not. Because when you're getting convicted, you're just like, oh, I probably should be doing that. But yeah, that's definitely interesting because I've definitely thought about that, because it's even like if I had a close friend that was in that community, and then even just like attending, and regardless of if I was even a part of the wedding, I just think even going in attendance is supporting the idea of it. And it's like, I don't want to do that, because even like my parents, they were invited to a wedding where it was basically the husband had cheated on his wife and then left his wife for this woman after divorcing her or whatever. And that was the wedding. And my parents were invited, but they're just like, we can't go to that wedding because it's supporting the idea of that it's okay to cheat on your wife and leave her for else. So it's the same thing like that. And I'm just like, I mean, that's good, because I never really thought about it like that, because I'm like, that is really like supporting the idea of it, which is wrong. So,
I haven't dealt with a wedding where there was any cheating yet. I've done, divorcee weddings, and I'm like, to me, I don't really have an issue with that, because you don't know the behind the scenes of why anyone got divorced. The most I've had, I've had widowers get remarried. Obviously, that's okay.
Yep.
But luckily, I haven't really dealt with anyone cheating on each other. There was one wedding. I luckily, they didn't ask me to be their photographer, but it was a polyamorous wedding. It was interesting.
I'm not too familiar with that.
Multiple people getting married together.
Okay. Yeah, no. No. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I feel like I met up with a family friend who was a pastor a while ago, and he told me, like, write down my core values, and especially in regards to my business, and at all costs, stick to it. Don't stray from it. You guys stick to it. And I've definitely been trying my best, because even I had a client who he was an owner of a salon suite, but he was part of the homosexual community, and I would see his phone screen occasionally, and it would be like of him and his husband and their kids or something like that. And it made me super uncomfortable. I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about this. Obviously, he was like also like my first client, so I wasn't too familiar as to how it's supposed to work around that. But I'm just like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that, because that's kind of, at least to me, that it's against biblical principles. Just like, I can't do that. So yeah, that's definitely interesting, because I've only had that one instance, and now it's like it wasn't that bad. And unfortunately, I mean, it was a good and bad thing that they kind of just stopped contacting me, and I'm just like, you know what, I'm okay. I don't want it. But you know, um, yeah, those types of moments is I feel like, especially when you need to stick to those strict guidelines that you have for yourself. So that in the future, if something like that were to come up, you're like, okay, reference that and be like, yes or no,
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So, um, what does your, how do you, I guess, when you're selecting your final deliverables, um, do you have like different tiers to your packaging, or you just compile a collection of them and you just send them out to your clients?
So I have 3 packages that I offer. I can do customizable packages, but mainly I just do these 3. And I have a 15-minute package, which is 10 photos, a 30-minute package, which is 25, and an hour package, which is 40. And what I'll do is I'll edit all the photos that I like, any that I think are usable, any that I think the client would like. I will edit all of those ones and I'll upload them to my website, but I watermark all of them.
Maybe.
And I'm able to put a limit download as well as a passcode to download the photos. So however many they choose to buy is how many I let them download. That way they have the choice, because sometimes there's a photo I might like that they might not like as much. So then I kind of give them that option to pick through which specific amount they would like. And then if they want the opportunity to buy more photos, they have that choice as well.
That's interesting. I've never really thought about it like that. That's smart, because I've never used to go to specialized video. You just can have one final deliverable, and that's kind of it. Photographies have multiple deliverables, and they would either you get to pick them or somebody else gets to pick what they like. So that's interesting. Have you shot proposals before?
Yes, I've done multiple surprise proposals. I love doing them. They are very stressful because a lot of the times you are hiding, and finding a spot to hide while also getting those good shots, it can be very difficult.
Yeah.
One of my favorite surprise photo shoots I did, I had to hide in a bush that had fire ants everywhere. And a lot of the times with these ones, since the man is trying to distract his woman, and sometimes there's people in the way and he has to wait for them to leave or something like that, it can get prolonged. I ended up hiding in that bush for 40 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Before I was able to pop out, and I was just covered in fire ants. It was pretty miserable, but it was worth it for the photos and for the surprise and everything like that. That was a fun though, and she was, so happy afterwards. She had no idea, but it definitely has its adventures.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, that was one of them. There was another one where he asked me to do the proposal in the Dallas Arboretum, but he did not know where he wanted the photos. He just knew he wanted it there. So I got there an hour early and I scouted the place, just walked everywhere to find an area where it wasn't too busy. The lighting was good. I had a spot to hide, and, he could propose to her. So I spent about an hour looking, and I texted him the coordinates, and I was like, meet me here. I'll be, hiding somewhere, and you can just propose. And that's what we did. But I had to, as he told me, we're on our way, I was kicking people out left and right. Like, hey, there's going to be a proposal. Can you please leave? Can you walk this way? Get out of the way. And I have to do that a lot. People are really sweet about it, though. No one ever really complains. They know. But
Yeah.
you really have to learn to kind of, if you're not like someone who likes to be confrontational, you have to be confrontational.
Right.
And you have to get people out of the way, and you have to make sure that you have a good spot where you're hiding well, but you also get a clear view of the couple.
Yeah. So when you are hiding, I'm assuming you're using a zoom lens and night lens. Okay. Because I'm assuming you'd also be fairly far away then, right?
I do.
Okay. Because I'm like, I wonder if you could use like a drone. I don't know. Because right, it probably wouldn't be as good.
Yeah.
But because I don't know the zoom capability is certain drones, but in order to minimize the hiding, but I'm sure you've got into science.
Yeah, I keep I have my zoom lens so that I can go from really far away, and it's kind of interesting because I have to find a weird angle to where I'm just not on the floor and like looking up at them because that looks really weird.
Yeah.
I also don't want to just be standing up and poking out. Sometimes I'll hide for a little bit and then I'll pop out after, she says yes and he stands up and whatnot. But yeah, definitely using a zoom lens and then kind of just finding a spot where I'm right there.
Have you ever had a proposal where she said no? I'm just curious.
I have not yet. I fear the day.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what I would do in that sense.
Oh my gosh.
Might give them a small refund. We'll see.
I would feel so defeated after something like that.
That would be terrible.
Okay. I have another question. Do you primarily shoot on Canons or are you Sony, Nikon? What do you shoot on?
It is all Canon. I started off with Canon because it was the first one I was gifted as a kid to practice on. So I learned Canon and I bought all the lenses for Canon. So I've upgraded my cameras over the years. I've bought more cameras, but all my lenses are for Canon. And I don't want to rebuy a ton of lenses just to have a new camera. So yeah, I keep them. And I relatively like it. I've tried Sony, I've tried Nikon, but I think mostly just because I'm used to it, I prefer Canon.
Yeah, I was actually interested. It was interesting because at the wedding I was shooting at 2 weeks ago, I primarily use Sony because I primarily for video, but also for the cinematography aspect of it. And so we were using primarily, I think they were, correct me if I'm wrong, the Canon MR5s and MR6s. And so some of them were actually, if they weren't Canon lenses, they were like third-party lenses. And so I'd seen how he had a bunch of different adapters attached to the body itself and then attached to the lens. I'd never seen that before. I didn't even know that existed. Because I was just like, it'd be pretty dumb if you couldn't use a Canon lens for like a Sony and vice versa. But I guess that's what the adapters are for, which is good. So they are pretty universal. Because we definitely swapped out lenses many times for the day. I'm just, it's a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
So when I definitely experienced this at a wedding, but when you're typically supposed to wear all black, are you actively trying to blend in, or are you? I guess I don't know how to say this, because at least when I shot a wedding, that was like probably the first time I had ever worn all black, and I just wore a tucked in polo and jeans, and I show up, and some of the other guys were like in slacks and a suit, and I'm like, that is too much. I'm gonna get way too hot. So you typically wear all black, right? And so, is it easier to blend in depending on what the audience, private parties were in, or yeah?
So I would say it's definitely easier because most of the time you look like one of the waiters or just staff members because most people aren't wearing all black to a wedding unless it's specifically requested. And in that case, I'd probably find a different color to wear. But I want to stand out slightly so people know I'm not a guest, but I also want to blend in enough to where I'm not just out there. I did have a Halloween wedding I did where they requested I dress up alongside everyone.
Oh,
So that wedding, I did show up in a full costume to shoot the wedding, which it was quite fun. But it was definitely my first time having to do that. And it was a black costume, so I still blended in. But I did end up, the bride ended up changing into a black wedding gown. She had a white gown, and then after the ceremony for the reception, her and her husband changed to black outfits because they were doing kind of like a Halloween party thing reception afterwards, and they wanted to look more spooky for it. So that was definitely fun. I've never had that happen before, and I would say, yeah, I looked more like a guest that day, and my people like, oh, how do you know the bride and groom? And I was like, I don't. But it was fun.
I showed up. Okay. Yeah. So, on wedding days themselves, do you find it easier or harder? I guess now you have a little bit of, or now you have experience, to really capture the emotions of the bride and groom, because I'm thinking of like when the bride walks down the aisle and watching the groom cry. Do you think it's easier to capture those moments, or you have to bring it out of those people depending on the couple?
I would say it's pretty easy. When I first started off with weddings, I used to actually wait closer to the door where the bride would enter or exit from, and I would get a lot of photos from her. But then I'd have to run around pretty fast to get photos of the groom to also get his emotion and like his side of things.
Yeah.
And one thing I learned that's a lot easier to do than that because that required a lot of moving. And if they walk fast, you can miss some of it. It didn't work out very well. But if you stand with the bridal party out of the way, you might like bend down and like kneel a little bit, but just in the front area, I'll use the Zoom or something similar to the Zoom camera or lens during the ceremony. That way I can get photos from far away and close up.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll just keep two cameras on me and swap them. But I'll zoom in on the bride and a lot of times her father as well, walking down the aisle. And then I'll get, both of their emotions, them crying or smiling or whatever. And then I can immediately, without even having to walk around, turn and get the husband and groom as well and get him, smiling or crying.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I feel like photographers, especially for weddings, have way more pressure on them to capture those moments, where a video is just like you kind of know what to shoot, kind of have that set shot list. But I guess for photographers you do, but also like I guess there are a lot more unpredictable moments, depending on the emotions of the bride and groom than there are with video, which is definitely interesting because I'm learning more about photography, but specialized in videography for like 3 years. It's definitely interesting to see the stark difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you ever had like a technical nightmare while ever shooting something? Like your camera stops working, your SD card gets corrupted or anything like that?
Yes, I think I've had it happen twice. It was so this one was a Mexican wedding reception. So it was very just big massive party. They had like the music, the dancing. They wanted everything captured. They did not want a single thing left out. I had my 2 cameras on me. I had lenses. I had 2 flashes, extra batteries. Like I was prepared.
Yeah.
But as I was taking the photos of the grand entrance, and this was very important to them to get these photos, my camera, it stopped focusing. I'm not really sure why. I've never had it happen again. It happened once, but it did not want to focus on them. And then as I was trying to switch to my other camera, they were already mostly done with the grand entrance photo, or walking down the grand entrance. And I tried to switch it over, and that one, the flash stopped working.
Oh my gosh.
It was a nightmare. I actually told them and had to redo it so we could get mock photos, because it did not, like, both cameras just went out on me, and I was in full panic mode. It was a dark room too. They had it inside, and they had flashing lights everywhere, so I couldn't just, like, I needed my flash, and my flash stopped working. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. So I was like, could y'all just run down at some point again for me?
I was just like, cut, reset, let's do it again.
Yeah.
Me being a director, I'm just like, we're gonna stop the whole thing. I know you already had all the emotions. We're gonna run it back.
Yeah. I've never had to do that again, but I was a beginner. I wasn't super new at the time. I'd done a few weddings by then, but I wouldn't say I was as confident or as prepared as I am now. Oh, but I had a little heart attack that day.
Really? Yeah, that is tough. I mean, I can't even imagine something like that happening. It just sounds terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I guess what I've experienced is with film, you can always, like I said, just stop, reset, and do it all over again. Like photography, you have to be able to capture it in that moment. You can't have one shot at it, which is, like, I mean, I can't even imagine your job, but I'd be freaking out. Like,
scary.
Yeah. So have you, after all the photo shoots you've done, especially with like family portraits, do you find it easier or relatively difficult or challenging to be able to direct the family or to direct the couple to do certain poses regarding specific shots you're looking for?
So I've learned it actually really depends on the people themselves. Some people, they are very used to being in front of a camera. They're very confident in front of a camera, and you can tell them to do pretty much any pose and they've got it nailed. They know what I'm asking of them. They do it immediately. And then there's the people that they don't even want to be in front of the camera, but they're like, we just want some nice photos. And I'll ask them to do something and they're not used to posing in a certain way. It won't be anything weird, but I could just be like, oh, like kind of play with their hair or do something like that. And they'll get really awkward with it, and they'll be kind of like this. I'm like, no, like follow me, do what I do. And they're not really comprehending how to copy me. And I always try to like show instead of just tell. I'll do the pose myself, be like, copy me, do what I'm doing. And a lot of people will struggle with it, or they're like, no, this feels awkward. And I'm like, it's going to feel awkward, but it's going to look great. It's just, like, I promise you, it'll look great, even though it feels weird. And sometimes if they're like, no, I'm not going to do that, I'll have to either change the pose, or most of the time, I'll just be like, okay, let's move on to something else. It doesn't look like you're going to get this necessarily. And I don't really want them having awkward photos, because it will show if they're uncomfortable in the photo. I would also say that it is a lot easier to do couples than families, because with families, there's not only a lot more people with a lot more different feelings on getting their photo taken, but especially if I'm photographing young children that just don't even want to be there, trying to get them excited to take a photo can be very difficult. I have kind of learned, if I get photos, I'll try and do like a couple like very like standstill photos, but I'll do with little ones that just want to run around everywhere. I'll do a lot of motion photos, to where I'll have the parents chase them or tickle them or pick them up and throw them in the air, just to keep the kids happy and smiling instead of crying the whole time. But I would say couples and even seniors I like to do the most because they're normally just it's one or two people and they're relatively easy to direct.
Yeah, that's interesting because it really depends on the family or the couple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I've definitely seen that with my aunts and uncles where they've done like Christmas pictures and they've got like a million different poses, but I couldn't even imagine the photographer's job, especially when my cousins were super young. So that's definitely interesting because I've never experienced that before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because even like my older sister, she's done photography for like family friends for like their Christmas cards, and I guess I'll lead into my next question. I guess they had their hearts set on these specific pictures. What if all the external factors, like the lighting is really bad, the backdrop is really bad, but they really, really want that specific shot? How do you work around the client's emotions because they want it really, really, really bad, but you have to work around all these terrible conditions in order to like make it okay?
So the best you can do is try and explain to them, hey, the lighting's not going to work great, or this is going to look bad, or there's going to be distractions. And if they really don't want to listen to you, then I'll be like, okay, here's the best I can do with the lighting, but it's not going to look the way you want it to look, or it's not going to come out this specific way. And I think just kind of warning them ahead of time is the best you can really do if they're being stubborn about it. And at that point, it's one of those the customer's kind of right in a sense because you'll have your creative vision, you'll have your knowledge of what's best, but ultimately they're paying you and they know what they want. So even if it's not something you'd like to do, you do it, but you warn them. And if they're still unhappy at the end, that's their choice. You're like, I warned you, and I have it in writing that I warned you, but there's not much you can do more than that.
It's definitely a challenge because as the creative, you have to be able to clearly articulate the fact that we're not miracle workers, right? And we, depending on the external environment, we have to be able to do our best, but it's not going to be perfect on more often than not. But we can always do the best that we can, which is, it's just interesting. So, and when you're shooting weddings, is there a specific moment that you're looking for that you would say could be like a signature piece for yourself that you are specifically looking for, or are you just trying to capture the overarching event of the wedding or event itself?
So one thing I have noticed is a lot of people don't really capture during the ceremony. They're so focused on the couple and, making sure they get every shot for the couple. A lot of photographers don't get the crowd. They might get like the parents, but that's it. They won't get the rest of the crowd or what's kind of going on inside there. And that is the one thing I actually focus on during the ceremony. I'll make sure, to get all the regular pieces that is in every ceremony gallery, the first kiss, walking down the aisle, the exchanging of rings, but you don't really need to focus on them that much as long as you can get just a couple photos of the bride, couple photos of the groom, maybe there's a bridal party, but there's normally plenty of time to walk around and, get photos of the guests all at the ceremony and making sure you get group shots of them watching the bride and groom, because a lot of the times, there's people sobbing, there's people smiling, there's people taking photos and they're all excited. And to capture that emotion that's not normally captured I really enjoy doing. So I will go around, especially if I see children, I'll take photos of the children as well because, they're still a part of the day and they still want to see what's going on. So to get like a kid that's super excited about it, you don't normally see. So I enjoy doing that and making sure I always go to every table that guests are sitting at and I get group shots of all the guests at the tables and, guests dancing, but as well as the bride and groom and bridal party throughout all of it.
That's really cool. You have, yeah, it's true because I guess when I look at wedding pictures, I don't think I've ever seen anybody like focus on the kids. Maybe like one of the weddings I've been to, but that's a good point. I mean, people really focus on stuff like that, which is good. Interesting. Let's see. Yeah, what was the hardest part of transitioning from photography as a hobby to running it as a professional business?
I would say dealing with all the behind the scenes because as a hobby, you do it whenever you want, you do it however you want. There's no stress, there's no expectations. It's fully just you learning, you enjoying your craft, and there's not really any opinions on it. People are just like, yeah, they're doing it as a hobby. But when you first start charging and you first start, trying to get clientele, you have to offer free sessions. And in these sessions, you're trying to not only get better, but you're also trying to keep these clients, or you're trying to get your name out there to get more clients so that you can actually start making money off of it. So definitely working to go from no one knows about you, no one really cares what you're doing, to, oh wait, I would want to like pay them to do photos of me, getting to that point. And all the monetary stuff behind it is it's no longer just something fun to where I can spend money on it. I'm like, this is a business. I have to pay taxes on it, which a lot of people don't think about with businesses. You have to pay a lot of taxes. Yeah. And on top of that, if I have to get like an LLC or whatever that I have to pay for each year. And then there's just expenses. And then also, am I even making a profit off of this? Right. So a lot of math goes into it for sure. And then keeping track of it all, but also wondering, am I overcharging or am I undercharging? What am I worth? Because you're making your own prices. So you have to see if you feel that you're also worth those prices. And then with having a contract, I force myself to have a turnaround time to where you will get your photos when I say you will get your photos, and not, like they're not paying me, I can wait a month to send them out. You're like, right. You have a deadline. It is a job. It's homework, even though it's something you still enjoy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely like a mindset shift. Because it's definitely one thing to get excited about, like, at least for me, to get excited that somebody's paying you to do something you like, but then a completely different story when it's not necessarily going to be as enjoyable as it initially was, but still realize it's still a job. You're still paying you to do it. You still have to go forth, put your best forward in order to not only for them to be happy, but hopefully in return that you'll get more clients from it. It's definitely a big shift from doing it for fun and then to doing it for the sake of running it as a business. And setting your own prices is definitely challenging, or has been challenging for me. What would you say was the hardest part about setting your prices? Did you do market research around other photographers in the area, or how did you come to your specific numbers?
So in the beginning, when I first started charging, I wasn't super confident in my work. And then also, I was like, well, I just started out. I'm not going to be as good or as professional as, someone who's been doing this a while. So I really just kind of did a trip fee. I was doing $50 a session, not even really enough to make anything. It was just something to maybe take care of some gas and some of my time. It was just, if someone's willing to pay for it, then at least I know I'm somewhere up there to where I'm good enough that they'd pay for these. And I kind of started off there. And then after that, it was a lot of research and calculations into what are people around me charging. And I would look at their work and I'm like, is my work the same? Is it better? Is it worse? And I'm not going to want to charge the same as someone who's been doing it 10 years, has a high clientele, is super professional versus someone who's been doing it, 1 year and they're not as good, or maybe they're just not charging enough to where they're running a proper business. So I kind of had to go in between that and then also look at myself, where am I advertising for photos? What is the rate in this area? What is how many people are advertising for the same thing? What are they offering? And trying to find the middle grounds as to what's fair and reasonable, but then also wanting to make sure I'm making a profit and I'm doing enough for my own time. And, that's about it. I did a lot of calculations, what percentages. It's mostly, okay, how much do I have to set aside for taxes? How much do I have to set aside for all the things I have to pay for in my business? So all my expenses with my website, my gear, anything I have to buy for the photo shoot, because a lot of times I'll bring props and things like that if someone requests it. So I have to calculate all of that into my costs and then still pay for my time and hours editing and how long it takes me.
Okay. Would you consider your specific area of work, like you have a specific niche, and if so, was it challenging to figure out what your niche was?
I would say so, because I wasn't really sure what I wanted in the beginning when I first started it as a hobby, because I just really found photography very interesting. I found everything about it interesting, the creativity, the lighting aspect, how the eye kind of sees these certain details and things. I started off with street photography. I loved going out in the city and trying to take pictures of the archaeological aspects of everything, or even just like people, animals, things like that. And then I switched to nature photography just because I just found it very pretty. I used to live in California, so I went hiking a lot, and, because we lived up in the mountains, and then there's the beaches and things like that. So there was a lot of nature to take from that. And then once I moved here is when I kind of started getting more interested in portrait photography, because I used to say I was never going to do it. I was very shy and I didn't want to deal with the stress of it. So I was always like, I'm never doing that. I'll stick to, nature photography, street photography, just fun little things I can do on my own time. But as I got older and I wanted to not only pursue it as a job and career, I also wanted to get better at taking photos of people, because, you want good photos of yourself. So also just having that knowledge of taking memories for people, I was like, it's actually really cool. It's really fun for people to receive the photos from you and just be so happy because you captured me exactly how I wanted you to capture me.
Right.
Or, these are the first photos where I like myself in them, or something like that. And I had been doing it for free for a while, just on a phone for friends or myself, and learning how to do that to where I was like, I could make this more serious and turn it into something.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I'm at right now, because up until now, I was kind of just doing everything I could get my hands on. And even then, I'd been cold calling local businesses, reached out to friends, and not really getting any traction. So kind of doing whatever opportunity landed in my lap. But then after realizing that it didn't necessarily turn into, I've been looking more for retainer projects. And so the reason for that is so it's a relatively consistent income from that one client. And so when I've been doing a lot of research regarding what other experienced video agencies do, they heavily emphasize on picking a niche and sticking to it. And I'm just like, I don't know what niche I want to do. I know what I want to do, and that's automotive videography, but I'm just like, I don't know how I'm supposed to get there because the gear that you need for it is super expensive. I know that I want to do that because I love working with cars. I love filming stuff like that. But I'm just saying, how do I work my way up without spending an arm and a leg right now, or money that I don't have? Because I definitely want to be able to get there within, I guess, the next year or so. But I'm just like, how can I do that? Because automotive video is kind of, it's not like a required thing. It's almost just like, okay, I have a cool car and I've seen this guy before. Like, I thought I'll pay him to make a video for me, as opposed to like wedding videography or wedding photography, where that's that type of stuff. Niche wise, it's very required specifically for the itself. Maybe.
Yeah. No, it was definitely hard trying to find my niche because I wanted to try everything. And it eventually just became, what do I enjoy the most and what helps me make the most money? Because in all honesty, that was part of my choice is, street photography is fun, nature photography is fun. However, they don't make much money off of it. And most of the time, you might have people pay for it for a magazine or a website or something like that, but it's not really a career to where I can sustain myself off of it, but also not have to travel too much for it.
Right.
Because it's definitely like you have to travel a lot for that kind of photography, especially if they want, photos from a certain mountain or a certain country or something like that. Versus this is something I could do locally. And I started it while I was in high school. So, I was doing school at the time and also able to make some money to save up for when I got older and that and everything. So that's kind of how that started. And then I've just stuck with it since then. It's gotten really easy. In the beginning, it was very difficult, especially again, I was very shy. I didn't like directing people, being around people, introducing myself to people. I was like, oh, hi, I don't know you. But now I'm very like, I can be out there and talk to anyone really.
Right. Yeah, it's just, it's just the practice, the repetition of it, because it's like networking, especially when I first started out networking, I was super intimidated to go out and talk to people. At least for me, I was just going and talking to actors who we were just trying to get actors for a school project. And I was kind of the only one who took it seriously within my group. And then I kind of use that same mindset with my business, and it still working on it. But I'm like, the concept of networking, I don't think it's taught in school. So it's just like you kind of have to learn it by trial by error, which is definitely interesting. So, yeah, would you say that because you said you were interested in high school, was that through the school itself, or is it just like a hobby that you picked up while in school?
So I actually started in my freshman year of high school, and it wasn't a part of the school. They didn't offer any photography classes. They didn't have a photography club. So my mom actually just found an online photography, not necessarily a school, but it was under a website, I believe, called a Udemy. And on that website, you can pretty much pay for any kind of class to learn how to do a skill. And they had a lot of photography classes on it. So she added it to part of my schooling to where she was like, I'm going to make you do this like an hour a day. And if you're serious about it. And I was like, okay. So I did my regular school, and then I did my photography, and my classes, my teachers online gave us homework. So we would have to, it started off with just mastering basic settings on a camera, understanding the settings on a camera. And then it went into, okay, your project is to find this in a certain area. So one example would be leading lines, which is where there's lines everywhere. There's horizon lines, there's road lines, there's pathway lines. Learning how to identify those and put a subject in those lines, or create those lines to lead towards a subject in nature and in buildings. And it's really, they were just training your eye and training your eye to look out for detail, look out for little things. And I would have to do that. I would have to go out. I would have to find subjects who wanted to work with me. And then I would have to take all these photos and send them in and get graded on them for pretty much each class, or every few classes, to where we learn a different thing, whether it was lighting or, subjects and posing and whatever else I was learning throughout the class. And that's kind of how it started.
Yeah. That's a supportive mom right there. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I grew up homeschooled. Mm-hmm. I really, really wish that opportunities like that were there back in high school, because all I knew that I wanted to do was make movies. That's all I knew that I wanted to do. That was like my junior year in high school. And the only reason I knew that I wanted to do that is because I knew I had to pick something by the time that I got, And so I wish that those types of opportunities were there within a school. And it's already hard enough in itself, in being a homeschool community anyways. But it's interesting because in my previous episode, talking with my friend who's another filmmaker, I was talking about how I wanted to think about starting a program for middle school students, high school students, and college students, of them to explore their creative side to them. Mm-hmm. If it's either being, because I have a friend who's a music producer. So if you're interested in producing, or you want to get good at graphic design or acting or photography, video editing, those types of things that are not taught in school, I want to be able to. The purpose of it is, I feel like there's too much pressure on high school students to know exactly what they want to do right out of the gate. And you have to know what you want to do, and what you're doing is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, Mm-hmm. I think that's wrong on the education system to expect that of 17-year-olds. And so, yeah, I don't know where I'll go with that, but I've been thinking about that for quite a while, because I'm just like, people need to take the pressure off such young kids. Expect so much of them, Yeah,
I think it's kind of interesting. So I wasn't always homeschooled. I started homeschooled for high school pretty much. But when I was in school, it was elementary school. It was about fourth grade when they started doing career days and things like that, where it was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And obviously you don't want to be the same thing as a kid a lot of the times that you do want to be when you're an adult.
Right.
So we'd have to do big old projects, and we'd have to do tons of research, and they'd have us interview people and shadow people for jobs we wanted at the time. You're only like 9 years old going and doing all this stuff. But, none of that was even like photography. I have changed my mind so many times as a kid. And each time it was like, okay, well, if this is what you want to do for the rest of your life, then you better get on it.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? even now, I'm like, what if I could still change my mind? You know, I've been doing this for a while. It's been one of my longer hobbies that I've done, but I change all the time. And so I feel like a lot of kids have that pressure to know what they want to do when they're graduating high school and then go to college for it and everything like that.
Right.
But I'm kind of just feel like, you know, I just figured out what I wanted. It was more of just a hobby that I turned into a career, but not everyone's going to do that or enjoy that. And sometimes, you know, you might just be happy with like a manager job or work at an office or something like that. And, you know, but it's hard to, when I have kids that are, you know, in high school and they're asking me how I knew what I wanted to do. I'm just like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just decided I was going to do it. And I can still change my mind, and you can still change your mind, no matter how old you are.
Yeah, no, I agree. And one of my friends, he had said he thinks that everybody should take a gap year after graduating high school, so you have the opportunity to explore all options. You know, I think that's one of the things that we're not told in school is we are allowed to change our minds, tied to one specific career choice for the rest of our lives, and that we have the freedom to do whatever we want, and just as long as we're still able to pay the bills. You know, it's a healthy medium between pursuing your dreams and your goals, while also having a realistic expectation for yourself, which is kind of what I've been figuring out myself. Because, you know, at some point I have to figure out that obviously this is what I want to be doing, but will I still be able to pay my bills, be able to pay off my student loans, and be able to family? You know, like those are things that I have to keep in mind that I probably didn't consider when I was a junior in high school. You know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they want to have like their career out of high school be like their dream job, but I would say first thing is finding a job that pays the bills.
Right.
Find something that pays the bills. Find something where you can support yourself, or even if you can't fully support yourself, just something where you can put into savings some money or pay off some loans, and you can find your dream job later on in life. You know, you don't have to find it right away. As long as you're working towards something, I think that's really good. You know, a lot of people, I would say, don't even ever do their dream jobs, but they find something they enjoy or they find something they're good at and they just end up sticking with it. So the pressure of having a dream job, I would say, makes it a lot more difficult. But I would say even like my job technically isn't my dream job. It's just a job I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree, because I think what I'm trying to figure out is I spent a lot of time just applying for like media based jobs for the past like year and a half, and we're talking about over 200 applications submitted and maybe close to 20 interviews, part-time jobs, full-time jobs, internships, and so far it nothing has led to a serious opportunity or a serious job offer. And so it's definitely got me questioning of just like, did I make a mistake? Is this really where I'm supposed to be? Like, these are the questions that unfortunately I'm having to deal with pretty much finishing on my junior year in college. I'm trying to figure out if I need to switch my major or not, because I don't know if I'd be able to get a job straight out of college, which is crazy. Because, you know, you would think that after spending 3 years in college, that college degree is your guarantee that you're going to be able to get a job. And then, unfortunately, you know, I think I've just seen it earlier than a lot of my peers of the unfortunate reality of the job market. But it's crazy Because I mean, it's only going to be a matter of time before like all of my peers are going to graduate and they're going to realize that it's you get diploma in your hand and you putting it on your resume is not a guarantee that you're going to be able to get a job because it's terrible. Which is again one of the reasons as to why I want to run my own business because I unfortunately don't want to have to rely on people is the wrong word, but like having to depend on people for the sake of job security. I don't like that. But, again, like you said, you have to be able to put food on your table and be able to pay your bills, um, which is the tough pill that I'm having to swallow right now because it's tough. Yeah.
Yes, because currently I still work, my full-time job as well as my photography. And this job, I was lucky to be offered it, but it wasn't, I just knew the right people kind of situation. And I started it, and it's not a job in a million years I would have ever seen myself doing because it was like everything I hated all bunched into one. But I've gotten used to it to the point where, I'm good at it. I can do it for the most part. And I'm like, what, this is at least a stable job to where it helps me pay my bills. But again, my goal in this case would be I want to quit this job and then I want to do the photography full time because then I'm my own boss and I'm not relying on someone else as to whether or not I keep my own job.
Right.
And then, you deal with all your own people, your own clients. You don't have to work with someone you don't want to work with. But there's also
good.
Yeah. Like you said, there's a lot of difficulty with owning your own business as well because you have to put in all the work versus, you show up, you're 9 to 5, you clock in, you clock out, you're good. This is, you're actually in charge of everything. And anything that goes wrong is your problem. So dealing with that, a lot of people, they want to start their own business and they think it would be easier to have their own hours and their own money management and everything else, but it's not for everyone. I would say you definitely have to be very determined and motivated to continue to own your own business and work for yourself.
I totally agree because I think because of stuff like social media, you see the successful business owners and you see where they are right now. Because I say that for myself, at least before I started my business, of the successful video agency owners, videographers, just entrepreneurs in general, seeing like them with the nice cars, the nice house, and you're just like, oh, they started a business. They're doing what I want to be doing, and they make it sound super easy. And then when you reach out to them, they want you to buy a course, and there is it's kind of the same thing where there is no real guarantee that you will be able to succeed. Because more often than not, they failed a lot more, but they didn't necessarily show it until they reached the finish line, and now they're putting the false expectation for younger people, and myself included, at least when we started, that yes, all you need to do is buy this course and you're going to be successful within 60 days. I mean, it's not right. And a lot of false expectations are like younger kids that stuff like that is that easy, but no, I mean, like stuff like this doesn't happen overnight,
And what they say normally is it takes about 3 to 5 years to actually make a decent living profit when you start your own business, because a lot of times people are jumping into it. They're putting all this money into it and they're not realizing I have no clientele. I have no social media for it. It's not out there. The word's not out there. No one knows about me. And then also what makes you better that someone would pay for you versus an established business. So getting to that point where you actually have to build yourself up, it takes so long and it is so much work to continue to be able to financially support yourself with just your own business, and it can take a long, long time. My mom personally, she has her own business. She started it 5 years ago, and this is her first year making profit.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's so much in starting a business that a lot of people don't realize, and I think that's why a lot of businesses fail, especially for younger kids starting right out of high school, because they're not actually understanding how much goes into it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, unfortunately, I feel like, in a lot of ways, I'm the first in my family to do something like this, and not necessarily absurd, but this outside of the box. And so, when stuff like this happens, I feel like I've been learning how to do all this stuff for the first time. And I've been asking my dad plenty of questions regarding his business. And I'm directing all my business questions towards him because I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But, definitely having like a mentor, or at least somebody that you can just ask those types of questions to, because I mean, you're only going to know so much. Obviously, I'm saying this to myself as well, because I don't know everything, and I'm really figuring all this out as I'm going. And it's super easy to like think that I know everything just because I had like one client and it lasted for like a month or something like that. But at the end of the day, that's not going to be sustainable enough where I can put that towards savings and be able to put that towards like new gear or stuff like that. Like I feel like since I started my business about 9 months ago, like I feel that I haven't been able to put anything into savings. Like I've just put that directly into just personal expenses. And I'm just like, I need to like budget better because I want to be able to afford new gear. I want to be able to bring other people on and start hiring other people. But I can't do that without proper funds. It's really like not necessarily periods, very slow, where you want one thing, you need to do X, Y, and Z before you can even get that in the first place. So
yeah, I've spent thousands of dollars on gear and things like that. So it was for a long time. I'm like, I'm making zero money. I'm doing all these photo shoots, and I'm charging this amount, blah blah blah. But none of it is going into savings. None of it is going into profit. It's going into paying off my expenses and my gear, my taxes, my gas. Just even just traveling, it costs money to travel. So going through all of that, it was the first year I made over 10 grand, all of that just right back where I started. I made no money off of it. And that was just my first year. So, you don't make much that year. But continuing on, I finally paid off everything. So I've gotten all my gear paid off. But even then, you still have to set money aside in case something happens to your gear.
right.
There's something could break, something could malfunction, And then I also need to keep up with it because there's some things I'm continuously buying, memory cards, batteries, things like that. And just keeping up with that on top of paying back everything at the same time. It takes a long time. So profit wise, I would say this is my first year making profit instead of just paying off whatever expenses I bought for the photography itself.
And how many years have you been in business?
I would say 2 years officially. I was charging before that, but that was before I was established and I was more so just practicing. So I don't really count that money. It was gas money.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. Okay. It's good things. I like to ask every single one of my guests as we kind of slowly wrap it up. I try to ask if there's one thing that you'd like to share with people of the next generation who are wanting to get started in photography or any of the creative spaces, who are unsure where to go, do you have any words of wisdom for them?
I would say if you're wanting to start with photography or do anything like that, do not start with just buying a ton of gear, because I've seen a lot of people do that and then they sell it pretty quickly. Watch YouTube videos and practice with a phone. Like if you're enjoying photography or videography or anything creatively in that such, do it with your phone. That's how I started. I did everything on my phone. And if you enjoy it enough to where you're doing it on your phone, then buy a cheap camera and go on Facebook Marketplace. I do not buy new. I have bought new once. I go buy used gear, and I go on Facebook Marketplace for deals because people are always selling things and they're always upgrading to new gear. So if you're going to start off buying cheap, buying used items, because you don't know if you're even going to continue enjoying it enough to where you want to make it a business, or if you want to keep doing it and invest yourself in it. So you don't want to spend all this money and then just get rid of it all shortly after, because you're going to lose if you do that.
Right.
So make sure it's something you enjoy. And if you can't afford classes, YouTube is everywhere. A lot of people just learn off YouTube. It's free, and you can get pretty much the same knowledge that you would if you were paying someone.
Great. That's great. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for being a Len. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to digest, because I'm currently trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing this summer, because I wasn't able to secure an internship as of right now. And so trying to make sure that I'm not just twiddling my thumbs the entire summer, but actually making it a point to start marketing my business. I've not done. And that's probably something I'm going to end up doing, because I definitely haven't done that, and I want to try just to see if I can get any new leads from it, and also to see if I can start dabbling in automotive videography, and then see if that leads to anything like that. So thank you for your bits of wisdom, because definitely trying to apply that to my own business, because that's I guess that season that I'm currently in right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah. So I like to close every episode with a blessing from number 6:24 through 26. May the Lord bless you and keep you, as for everyone watching. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support for the past 2 months, I think. I've seen a lot of fruits from this. I just want to say thank you and appreciate all the support. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.